Ezio Auditore da Firenze was a master assassin during the Italian Renaissance, as well as being an inheritor to the mysterious ability of eagle vision and one of your ancestors. Ezio was something of a playboy in his early years. Literally, one of the first missions you play as him was literally having sex with a girl. So, but his life changed in 1476 when his father and brothers were arrested and executed for treason. Emotional mission. Ezio tried to save them, but the evidence claiming their names mysteriously disappeared in the hands of a family friend. Instead, they were hanged as Ezio looked on. Ezio fled with his mother and sister to Monte Regione. He sought refuge with his uncle, Mario Auditore. It's really kind of funny when you first meet Mario because he has a line saying, "It's me, Mario." Complete reference to the Mario franchise of Nintendo. While Ezio had originally intended to continue on to own Spain, Mario had other ideas. He was a leader of the Italian Assassin Brotherhood and spent the next several years training Ezio, and convincing him to help fight the Templars responsible for the deaths of his father and brothers. Ezio spent the next decade ascending his way through the Templar ranks, especially cornering the Templar Grand Master Rodrigo Borgia in Venice in 1487. Borgia got away, but Ezio was able to recover the Abolidium and was formally inducted into the Assassin Order. After several setbacks over the next few years, Ezio traveled to Rome in 1499 to confront Rodrigo, who by then had become Pope Alexander VI. After defeating Rodrigo but sparing his life, Ezio opened a hidden vault under the Sistine Chapel, which for the longest time I thought it was pronounced 16th, as in 1-6 chapel. There he discovered a message left by the First Civilization warning of a catastrophe that would threaten to wipe out humanity. Yes, that will be the one we're facing right now. Over the next 20 or so years, Ezio worked at strengthening the Italian Assassin Brotherhood and fighting the Templars, which is sort of what we do. One of his greatest accomplishments would be discovering a hidden library belonging to Altair, hidden under the former assassin stronghold at Masyaf, and containing another message from the First Civilization. Retire from the Brotherhood shortly thereafter, which is what we call ending on a high note. He was terrific at jumping too. Ezio died in Florence in 1524. Don't know if you'll ever get to see. Maybe it was shown in the Embers thing, as I mentioned earlier. Again, I never watched that. Achilles Davenport. You know, things to look at him now, but this man was once a mentor at a powerful branch of assassins, the Colonial Brotherhood. Achilles' life before he was an assassin isn't well documented. It seems that most of the records were destroyed when the Templars nearly wiped out the Order in 1763. From what I do have, Achilles was recruited in the mid-1730s and became a mentor in 1706. He had a gift for both recruitment and organization, so before long, he was head of a crew of assassins that spanned the colonies of much of the frontier. Really, there's only a couple assassins I really liked in what I saw in Rogue. One of them was Hope. I really liked the assassin Hope. And really, her assassination mission was really one of my favorites of the game of Assassin's Creed Rogue. Achilles strengthened the ties between the Order and the nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, particularly the Kanakahaga, though as far as our records show, Conor is the first Native American to actually become an assassin. Sorry, I thought I heard someone come up to my door. Louis Mills. Louis Mills was a deckhand originally from where we British somewhat optimistically call Sunny Brighton. He got his love of the sea from his father, who was also a sailor. He first took Louis to sea with him at the age of 10. Sailing from London, by the way, I've been doing this for close to 2 hours now. Sailing from London to Boston on a vessel named the Windward. As he grew older, Mills kept working as a merchant marine, traveling the world and gaining a reputation as a reliable and level-headed sailor. He joined the crew of Providence in 1752, staying with the captain and crew through a variety of hardships. So by 1755, he was thinking of moving on. I think you saw him at the beginning. David and Richard Clutterbuck. David and Richard Clutterbuck were gunners in the merchant navy starting in the mid-18th century. According to the reputation, these two aren't adverse to a friendly fistfight over pretty much anything. So if you're talking to them, try not to mix up their names. David is the older brother, Richard the younger. Oh, and definitely don't try and be funny with their surname. The Clutterbucks were a Dutch family who moved to London when David and Richard were young. Their father was a dock worker. So the two brothers grew up near and the dock yards, running errands to pass the time and earn extra cash. They showed an early aptitude and affinity, if you will, for fighting. The two brothers joined the crew with Robert Faulkner aboard their stalwart in 1715, working with him until he disappeared in 1753. Like many who go to sea in search of adventure and treasure, the Clutterbucks' motivation was somewhat different: guns. They grew up hearing the stories of the sea, and it wasn't until they overheard a gunner talking about the power of his cannon they decided sailor's life was for them. Sailor was not, in fact, talking about an actual cannon, but the impressionable lads missed it. See what I'm saying? I'm saying he was talking about another type of cannon, a different weapon altogether. I'm saying he was saying his cannon had power. I'm using speech marks to make it obvious he had a powerful weapon he wielded in a normal penis. Still don't get it? Oh well, I got it the first time. Clutterbuck spent years traveling on various merchant and privateer vessels, almost always hiring on as a pair. And when she settled semi-permanently at Martha's Vineyard, taking it as a place to rest between contracts, where they would get tired of all the quiet and hire on to another crew. I'll explain that joke again later. How stupid does Sean Hastings think Desmond is? And that's what these messages are supposed to be for. They're supposedly read by Desmond Miles. You think that Desmond Miles is an idiot? Amanda Bailey was a well-known and well-liked innkeeper in Martha's Vineyard around the time of the American Revolution. She was born in North Carolina in 1730, the oldest of a large family. Her mother died when she was 14, leaving young Amanda to work and help care for her younger brothers and sisters alone. Amanda first crossed paths with Robert Faulkner when she was a teenager. He was working for the United Company of Merchants. He was a barmaid, clearly a recipe for romance. They exchanged letters. I suppose it was a texting of his day. To stop when Faulkner disappeared from Halifax to join the assassins, sad face. By reports that Faulkner had fallen overboard and was dead, Amanda felt that he was still alive somewhere, and after several years, she went in search of him. Possibly so she could give him hell for abandoning her, but I'm speculating. She never found Faulkner and eventually settled in Martha's Vineyard, taking a job working at a local inn, which she later purchased. And had a born talent for leadership and organization. She was responsible for setting up her school in the area, not to mention advocating the improvements to the docks and bringing in more business. Her inn was a hub for gossip during the Revolution, particularly if you want the latest in ship movements. Probably comes to no surprise to you that she was a spy for the Patriots. It's only been publicly known since 1919, where a box of her personal correspondence was found, including some code letters and Benjamin's tall messages and writing. I'm reading this fast because I've been doing this for so long. I just want to be done with this. Robert Faulkner. Robert Faulkner was probably one of the most storied members of the Assassin Navy, though he was never formally named to a position above first mate. Robert Faulkner was the first of fourth generation of his family to be a seaman. I'm glad I didn't say that out loud. And the first of his family to be recruited to work for the Assassins. He started off in the Royal Navy, but finding his career stalled, only to his inability to purchase commissions. He left to work for the United Company of Merchants in 1753. Faulkner disappears to the historical record, presumed dead, but that's because he joined the Assassins as first mate of the flagship the Achilles. Faulkner was much sought after as a mariner. Recruiting him was quite a coup for the Brotherhood. He had a reputation for having disciplined crew and an almost uncanny knack for avoiding trouble, not to mention predicting the weather. Whether through years of experience or some other more mysterious ability, because I totally believe in those, Faulkner would know when a storm or calm patch of sea was coming in, and could use it to his advantage. Imagine that, a natural weatherman who could accurately predict the weather. The world will never see his like again. I'm kind of getting vibes of Nami from One Piece. How she can literally just tell when a storm is coming just by feeling the wind or something. I don't know how things work. Faulkner served on board the Achilles until it was nearly destroyed in 1768, always referring when he asked to become the captain. He never gave his reason why. However, his love for the ship was quite touching. He had a tow to his location near Boston, despite doubts that it would ever be seaworthy again. Faulkner could have gone back to the sea aboard another ship, but didn't. He stayed close to the ever deteriorating Achilles and took to drinking, which is where Conor found him. Alice Thatcher. Charles Thatcher was a nephew of a well-to-do London merchant who purchased a commission for him in the British regulars. He was quite young. He was sent to the colonies in 1750. Poor man. When he was posted at the defenses along Boston Neck, you won't be surprised to learn that Thatcher had a mean streak. A few men wanted to serve under him, which might be what led to him being posted in Boston in the first place. Oh, it's this guy. This is the slave guy. Living in the colonies was regarded as something akin to exile at the time. Actually, come to think of it, not much has changed. Many events under Thatcher's command were noted for their cruelty, like his personal assistant Cutter, which even you might have guessed is a nickname, meaning one who likes to cut things, preferably people. Not what I look for in a PA, but there you go. A PA is personal assistant. At the time, paying the army was notoriously bad, and soldiers would often pick up odd jobs in their spare hours to make ends meet. This made them rather unpopular in Boston, where unemployment was rather high. However, Thatcher found something he enjoyed much more, demanding protection money from merchants in Boston. Only that, but he dabbled in theft. But stealing goods in the slave trade, a Renaissance man capturing the local indigenous people and selling them off to the highest bidder. This is what he was doing with Nathan Fallon. How much more is this? Okay, not much. Ganyeta Zio. Probably butchering it. Zio was a member of the Kanekahanga nation living on the frontierlands near Boston at the time of the French and Indian War. That's a record indicates that she was the daughter of something or grandmother. From an earlier age, she was being groomed for leadership herself, while many in the community chose to ignore the incursions by colonists in the area and growing tension between the French and British. Zio was convinced that they presented a very real danger. He began to argue to anyone who would listen that the village should take action rather than staying silent. Excuse me, sorry. Which was contrary to the will of the clan chiefs at the time. He refused to follow their orders to remain neutral, deciding to fight back in her own way and recruiting help wherever she could, where she could get it, including from Nathan Kenway. Zia's actions during the Braddock expedition, along with her relationship with the known Templar, more or less excluded her from becoming a grandmother herself in her adulthood. However, it seems even after her child was born she would continue arguing for action in the war. Rather than the restraint advocated by the village elder, she did, however, cut off all contact with Haytham. Not clear why the Templars attacked in 1760 or what their objective might have been. The village was nearly destroyed but recovered over the course of several years. And that makes slightly more sense. It seems the Templars weren't behind the burning of Conor's village, and thank George Washington for that. I'm guessing that part of Washington's military career didn't make it into your history books, but oh. So it wasn't Charles Lee that burned it, it was George. Oh. Why would George Washington burn the village? Oh, that's interesting. Learn something new every day. Tanya Tokone? I don't know. A friend of these names. I know that's supposed to be Connor's name, but I don't think I'll ever be able to pronounce it. From the same village. The two boys were the same age and members of the same clan, make them cousins. The connection may have been somewhat distant. The boys were inseparable during their childhood, with something being more conservative of the two. That is, Connor be the one to get them in trouble, and something would try and talk them out of it. Of course, after Connor become an assassin, he and his old friend drifted apart. Sometimes that can happen when one of you becomes an assassin. They formed rather different views of how their village should participate in the war. And something originally supported Connor's idea that the village should stay neutral. After seeing protection offered to other nations by both British and French, he began to reconsider. She argued for the villages joining the war, generally on the side of the British, the allies of many other Kanekahaga. Their disagreement came to a head when something confronted Conor with the knowledge that his loyalist allies had planned an attack on their village. In the ensuing fight, Conor was forced to kill his friend, so annoying when that happens. George Washington updated. Here's a name that even you should recognize. George Washington, who will go on to be the leader of the army during the American Revolution. and the first president of the United States. I was going to say you probably don't, you probably know everything I'm going to tell you, but that would be a lie. What you know is that George Washington has a lot of things named after him, and anything else you learned about in school, you forgot because he thought you never. Once again, Sean Hastings, man after my own heart. You call your history teacher and she was right all. Only remember one history teacher that I've had that really stuck with me in college, and I can't remember his name. I remember his face, I can't remember his name. George Washington was the son of a planter from Virginia. He was raised with a little education, but was ambitious, teaching himself mostly from books. Washington started his in business early, speculating on land starting at the age of 18. When he was 20, his older brother died, leaving him the heir of the family president. I've been doing this for so long. Sorry how bad she was reading. Leaving him the heir of the family plantation in Mount Vernon, where he lived until his death, where you can still visit his grave today. I can't read. My throat is drying out. I think his older brother is someone he killed in Rogue. Washington got his military started in the French and Indian War, the Indian expedition to Fort Duquesne, 1754. Destination he never reached, having surrendered at Fort Necessity. The next year, Washington headed to Fort Duquesne again, this time as a guide for Edward Braddock during the ill-fated Braddock expedition. Washington went as a volunteer, hoping that working for Braddock would get him on track to military promotion. Though the battle was around, Washington earned credit for organizing the retreat, and later that day he was made a colonel in charge of the Virginia militia. Washington completely revamped the militia with hopes that under his organization and training they would be accepted into the British military. Never were. Washington resigned his post in 1758. I won't say the snub is contempt for the British, but snubs rarely help. By the late 1760s, Washington had become an active in political life, taking on a role in the Virginia House of Burgesses. He went on to be a member of the Continental Congress, and when war broke out in 1775, he was Congress's choice to lead an army. At the time, I realize I'm now approaching the 3-hour mark. I've been doing this now. It's currently 9:45. I believe I started close to 8. Wait, it's close to the 2-hour mark. At the time, Washington said, "I do not think myself equal to the command I'm honored with," which I'm sure inspired complete confidence in everyone who heard it. Imagine if you're on an airplane and the captain opens that. It's possible Washington was being falsely modest, but the fact is this: he wasn't a military genius, and I knew it. I'm sure it hurts the American pride to hear me say that he wasn't perfect. Washington had several narrow misses where the army could have easily been obliterated at Manhattan and again at Brand New Mine, among others. Washington won an easy victory. He broke the siege of Boston, but he then made a disastrous move of fortifying New York. That he couldn't defend without a navy he didn't have. Even you can work that one out. He spent the latter half of 1776 retreating across New York and New Jersey, using battle after battle until Christmas. And he then pulled off a successful surprise attack that Hessian troops at Trenton. Look at that missing word. About the battle, mixed for some famous paintings, it did rally the flagging confidence of the public. It was a minor victory in the war. Washington's lack of skill didn't go unmarked either. Charles Lee lost faith in him completely, not ever going quite so far as to disobey Washington's orders, but not following them promptly either. In 1777 to 78, Washington had to defend himself against the Conway cabal. They threatened to replace him with the General Horatio Gates. However, Washington's strength and leg in politics and leading the army was as much about politics as it was about winning battles. Washington had to negotiate between the varying interests of the army, the individual colonies, and my throat is dying, and Congress, and not just for instructions on how to wage the war, but also for basic supplies for the troops. By all accounts, he must have been extremely patient, trying to get politicians to give you anything, like trying to get a dog to give up his bone. Actually, my money would be on the dog, so we'll occasionally. Whatever the criticism of Washington's military strength, the bottom line is that he won eventually. When the revolution ended, he was the unanimous choice for president, a credit to the fact that he managed to both win the war and not alienate anyone in Congress. Of course, if you're looking for something to criticize Washington for, you don't have to look far. He ordered the total ruin of indigenous settlements from the Sullivan expedition, not to mention he was a plantation owner, which meant he owned more than While yes, his will did provide for them being freed after both he and his wife were dead and wouldn't need them anymore. I don't really consider that particularly. Wow. Wow. Washington was a slave owner. Am I ending on a low note? I'm here to teach you history, not soothe your fucking asshole. Really, Sean? I never knew that George Washington was a slave owner. Casimir Pulaski. Casimir Pulaski, or to use a Polish spelling, Kazimierz Pulaski, was a Polish noble and cavalry leader who fought on the side of the rebels during the American Revolution. Pulaski was a fighter in the Polish resistance during the late 1760s and early 1770s. Unfortunately for him, he was on the losing side and had to flee France. Poor guy. Having to flee to France, poor guy having to flee to France. There he met Benjamin Franklin, who was keeping an eye out for any experienced military commanders who could help the rebel war effort. Franklin wasted no time and sent Pulaski in the direction of George Washington. Pulaski joined the Continental Army in 1777 and made himself immediately useful at the Battle of Brandywine. I almost said Bottle of Brandywine, which probably would have been something else. Where he prevented George Washington from being surrounded by the British. He probably saved Washington's life along with the lives of many in the Continental Army. As a thank you, Pulaski was named a brigadier general and placed in command of the Continental Army Cavalry. At the time, was extremely small, scattered, and scouting. After some tensions with his superior officer, Pulaski resigned his commission and was allowed to start again elsewhere. During a small corps of lancers and infantry that, reasonably should be obvious, became known as Pulaski's. Thomas Paine. Paine was a political pamphleteer originally from England. His book Common Sense was an argument for American independence. Became one of the most popular books in American history. Something that I did not even know about. What the heck is... I hope you not learned about this. It was apparently the most popular book in American history. American Education at Work. Mainly because Americans thought it was a book about common sense. Wow. At the time, most... Really? Okay, really? Argument for American Independence and Americans thought it was a book about common sense. That just is stupid. At the time, most of the literature about independence was written by lawyers and politicians, in the kind of self-important Florida language that could only be understood by college graduates or written by me. However, Common Sense lived up to its title and was written in a straightforward language so basically anyone could understand its arguments, even people who couldn't read. The book was so popular that there were numerous public readings of the text, making it an early audiobook in many ways. While the book wasn't what convinced Congress of the value of independence, they already knew. It did cause a groundswell of popular support, and that was important because Congress needed the public on their side. And they needed to convince soldiers to fight for them. Common Sense did both. I don't have any record of Conor actually meeting Paine, but I thought you'd like to know about him as his works played such a crucial role in the revolution. Yes, I put this at the end so you'd read the whole thing before figuring that out. I can be about... Against Sean Hastings. Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton was one of George Washington's trusted advisors during the American Revolution, the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States. Hamilton was born in 1757 in the West Indies and was orphaned at the age of 11. However, his cleverness showed early, and his employers pulled their money to send him to university. Either that or they just wanted him out of the building. Hamilton moved to New York in 1773 and began attending King's College, later Columbia University. Really? By 1774, he was writing pro-rebel articles, not really in the spirit of attending somewhere named after the king. By 1775, he joined the volunteer militia. Again, probably not exactly what his sponsors had in mind when they sent him there. Hamilton fought during the occupation of New York in 1776. He was a natural leader, and George Washington appointed him an aide-de-camp, a job he held for 5 years. However, Hamilton was eager to get back into battle, and in 1781 he commanded troops during the decisive victory at Yorktown. Hamilton became a member of Congress in New York in 1788. He developed a particular fixation on the funding of the federal government, which at the time was broke, as it wasn't allowed to demand any taxes from the member states. But that may sound wonderful when you're looking at your federal tax bill. It meant the government couldn't do things like pay their army, soldiers like getting paid. In 1787, Hamilton was named the first Secretary of the Treasury, where he fought for a strong federal government, heated opposition with Thomas Jefferson, who promoted states' rights. Hamilton was responsible for creating much of the foundation of U.S. fiscal policy, the details of which are probably important, but so indescribably boring I can barely be bothered to finish the sentence, but I did because I care. If you want to learn more about Alexander Hamilton, just watch a Broadway musical called Hamilton. They actually cover his entire life, and they're somewhat accurate. It's really a good musical. If you are turned off by musicals, just know there's kind of more focus of rap. But in my opinion, it's actually a really good play, and I believe it's still available on Disney Plus, but I may be wrong. Anyway, that does it for all the characters. I'm going to be going into groups, and that's actually all that I'm going to be reading because I've been reading a lot. But those are the important characters of the story. Go ahead and pause it if you want to read it. I'm just going to take a little bit moment of silence to rest my voice. I really want to get something to drink. I will also not be reading anything else after this. I said I was maybe reading the Benjamin Franklin inventions, but I will not be touching that. I'll be showing it off, but I won't be reading it out loud. I was kind of going through this slow because I want to see if the Daughters of Liberty was mentioned. I believe this was, I believe, like, either the wife of Samuel Adams or the wife of Thomas Jefferson or something. At the, when the Revolutionary War was ended, well, I guess I should say that one of their wives created a group called the Daughters of Liberty. And at the end of the Revolutionary War, she sent a letter when essentially the first president was essentially being decided. She sent a letter and said, "Don't forget the women that helped build this country." And funnily enough, he did seemingly forget about it because it wasn't until like the 1960s or whatever when women got the right to vote, which is just crazy. Can't remember what year that happened. It was like the women's rights movement. Maybe the 1940s actually. But it just took a long time. In my opinion, they should have just had the right to vote from the beginning of quote unquote all men, all I've always attributed that all men thing to be all people. I guess people just attribute that to be all people with a dick, I guess. Guess we'll never know what the founding fathers actually wanted, but I feel like that they should have just kind of worded things better. Also, the right to bear arms thing as part of the thing is still like a go-to excuse or thing for people for gun nuts in the world. And even though like it's different, the guns that we use now is way different than the guns that was used in the past. People didn't really use guns to just go on a mass killing spree like freaking muskets. I think that they do now, so I do kind of agree that gun control should be used because it's just becoming a problem where people just buy guns and just go on a shoot spree. Almost every single week I just find out about another shooting or just someone being shot in the group of people being shot in the past. It just really kind of sucks because the problem is people are just down just defending their right to have guns, but at the same time, there's some people that are just not in the right state of mind to have guns. I mean, I don't have a problem with a lot of people. There's a lot of most of the time I don't have a problem with people having guns, but it's just some people that are just not mentally right that have a gun that could just use it to kill other people. And that's really what I have a problem with. Hey, yes, awesome recruits. I imagine we're probably close to being done with this at this point. I hope we don't have that much left. I really just want to be done with this. It's currently 10 o'clock at night. Really just want to like get in a drink and just get to bed and just mentally prepared for streaming tomorrow. It's only Thursday right now. Probably gonna be Thursday for another 2 hours. Oh god, I swear to God, I'm still doing this at midnight. Thing is, I was not expecting to take this long. I thought I'd be done with this in an hour. I always did kind of like the character Dobby. And that's another thing that I also thought was kind of a little bit underrated, in my opinion, was the liberation missions. I always thought that those are really fun to do, just to try and liberate missions, liberate sections in New York and recruit allies. I always thought those missions were very fun to do. Very quick and easy too. Oh my god. Okay, let me. You still have a lot to do here. What I may end up doing. Yeah, I'm actually gonna pause in the thing here. I'll be finishing up and realize. Sorry, my mic is directional. So it can only pick up sounds that are directly in front of it. I'm gonna pick this up at a later date. So I'll probably just record this some more tomorrow. But I've been doing this for like 3 hours now. Let me check. I've been doing this for 2 hours and 5 minutes, and I have a lot to get through. I've really only done locations and people, but I will be. This is a lot to get through. I'll be wrapping this up in the next later date, but I just need to take some time to relax because I'm just exhausted at this point. Anyway, I'm gonna end the episode here. Tomorrow, likely I will record this again and I'll wrap this up. But I'm gonna end the recording here and I'll start again later.